All right, so I went forward with ordering samples from two different factories, and both of them have now arrived. Both of these samples are not the dimensions that I will use for my particular product. So I pushed back on that one factory that was going to charge me $200. I was like, wow, that's kind of a lot. And they said, well, if you're okay with us sending you a sample of a product that we made for a different customer, it's not going to be your exact sizes because we have to kind of customize that specifically for you. But if you want to get a gauge of the plastic material and the metal that we use, then we're happy to send you one for $70. That's what I did. And it was kind of the same thing with the other factory a little bit. Well, I didn't push back, but they just asked if that was okay. They're like, it's the same materials. So just because we wanted to keep this thing moving along quickly, I said both, or I was okay with that with both of the factories. If, I'd probably play it by ear depending on, if you're okay with that or if you want them to make kind of like your specific product. But sometimes, like if there's a new mold that's required or something like that, it could be quite expensive just for the sample. So you kind of just have to factor that in for your particular situation. So let's go ahead and compare these. This one came in a 3-pack with plastic over it, and these things are taped down to it. Whereas the other factory just sent me one piece of metal and one white yard sign. So to start, I'm going to go ahead and just open this up. And I'll give you my first impressions on how I think about both of these. All right. So, I did give specific specifications of what I wanted as far as thickness of the metal. Neither of them told me that the thickness of the metal would be different than what I had originally wanted. But when I compare these next to each other, okay, never mind. They look about the same thickness. At first, I thought one looked a little bit thinner or thicker. As far as like the little welds concerned on these guys, it also looks about the same. So it looks like it's made out of the same material. And this one right here would be closer to the dimensions of what my final product would be. The next thing that I would do for a product like this is that I essentially give it kind of like a little bit of a stress test. I would take it out in the yard, I would step on it, I would see if, that broke at all, or if it, held up to me stepping on it. I would probably try to find some like really hard ground to stick it in, because you think like, okay, what would make these break? It'd probably be some kind of really like gravelly soil or something like that. And then I'd probably try to do the same thing for both of those. One of my first reactions here is that with the wider one, it seems like it's going to bend and break much more easily than what the shorter one would, which makes me feel good about having it a little bit more narrow, but I might even be able to make it a little bit more narrow. So that's something I could think about and consider. Other than that, I don't know of too many other ways to gauge the quality of this particular item. It looks like the exact same metal. I think they are both galvanized steel, just like I asked for. Like I said, the welds look like they were done with the same kind of machine. When I get out there and step on it, some might break a little bit more easily than the others. But then the last part for me to compare would be these plastic signs. So, and again, we're not comparing size right now because they both told me that these are not the size. Funny enough, though, they actually are the exact same size. And when I look at these, it's probably really hard to see this in the camera, but it looks like this one over here actually has less like lines in it. Like when I look at it, the lines clearly show up on this one over here on my right hand, whereas this one, they don't clearly show up, which seems like a little bit nicer. Other than that, they're the same thickness, which is good because I specified a specific thickness. The little grooves in are the same distance, but it seems like this one must be a little bit thicker since the lines show up less. Other than that, I'd probably kind of, bend it a little. Like that one's kind of broken. I would kind of see if this one This one feels like maybe it was a little bit harder to bend like that. So overall, I'd probably favor this one a little bit. I don't remember which one is at what price. I would say they're pretty darn close though. There's definitely not a clear winner, but if they're priced the same, I would go for the one on my left-hand side. If this one's significantly cheaper, it seems like the quality's close enough that I'd probably just go with it. And yeah, that's essentially how I go about evaluating different samples. Now, of course, as you can imagine, depending what type of product it is going to change the things that are my criteria for evaluating it. When I'm trying to gauge what criteria I do want to evaluate these samples on, one of the things I'd recommend is reading the reviews of the customers and seeing what types of items they either complain about or compliment the product on. So if you remember back when we were reading the reviews, a lot of people were saying that these would bend and break. So yeah, I'll take these out and step on them a little bit before I find, or choose which one I want to go with. But if one bended and broke more easily than the others, then I'd be less likely to go with that factory. But just by looking at them and holding them next to each other, my guess is they're about the same quality as far as that goes. So yeah, relatively simple product to evaluate samples on. Some of the things that I typically do for other types of products, if it came in the packaging, sometimes I'll drop the packaging from like this height to see if the package splits open when it falls. Just think like someone who's really hard on this type of product, what would they do to it? So for example, if it was, my baby towels, I ran all of them through the washing machine like 5 or 10 times to see what they looked like after that. Let's see, what else have I done for other products? I've just been like pretty hard on them, kind of like throwing them around, roughed them up a little bit, see how they kind of like reacted to that. Let's see, I kind of just like to picture, I don't have like a formal process for it. I just kind of like to picture like, okay, someone who is going to be really hard on this product and like really critical, what types of things would they do to it? Because I want to do those things to my product and see what happens as a result. So yeah, that's how I go about evaluating my samples. Hopefully that helps you guys do the same, and best of luck with your factory selection.